Alright, the macro will begin playback now. Alright, so this is a macro of the new 100% route, demonstration run of the new 100% route, because this route is very hard and complicated. And I wanted to make a full demonstration of it because it might be a while before I even finish a single run of it. Same thing happened last time with the previous 100% route for anyone that was around for that one. If anyone saw runs of that one, it was very difficult to finish a run. It can crash almost anywhere. Same thing is with this run. In fact, this run has more places where you can crash. So with the last route, what changed so much is there were a bunch of new 100% or a bunch of new uses of SRM, stale reference manipulation, which had amazing potential for 100%, primarily the ability to warp anywhere. But the ability to warp anywhere, as cool as it seemed, was limited to only child. And about 2 months ago, actually I think almost exactly 2 months ago, a new way to set up the warping anywhere was found, and it works as adult too. And so the previous route was very child heavy. You pretty much did as much as you possibly could as child, and then adult was kind of like the normal part of the run, or like, you know, normal for OOT standards. And then and now with this new route, we actually have a way to warp as adult. But there's another thing that only child gets, which is F-boots, which I'll go into a bit more detail when that happens, but basically it's glitched boots that have no gravity, which allow you to fly, and those only work as child. So in the previous route, it was kind of awkward where child had both the exclusive ability to warp and the exclusive ability to fly. And so this kind of made it a very child-heavy run, and then adult kind of had the normal stuff. Now in this run, both adult and child can warp, but only child can fly. But there are some things where the flying wasn't very good, and so we can actually like kind of pick and choose now. Okay, what do we actually want to do as adult? What do we actually want to do as child? And because not everything is good with F-boots, and some things we actually are just better at doing with adult. So now this run's a bit more balanced. I'll get into exactly how all of that plays out when we get there. So the beginning of the run is the first 10 or so minutes, first 10 to 12 minutes is roughly similar to most OOT runs. And also, I should mention, I'm playing this back. This is actually a macro played back on console. This is not a video. And this is really cool because I'm playing this back on GZ, which allows me to use commands that GZ has for just to do cool stuff and like see cool stuff. Like I can turn on collision view, and this will like show all the collision in the area, and hitbox view, which allows me to see hitboxes. So I can turn those on and off throughout the run. That'll just help demonstrate how certain things work, which is really neat. And also, this macro will be up for download after the run. You can download this macro and the save state pack with it, and play this back on your own Wii if you have GZ. Also, as a side note, this actually almost works on N64. I was actually trying to play back on N64. Like, there's two specific places that unfortunately crash. One of them I actually could avoid. I just had to like use a bomb instead of a chew in one place, and it would not crash on N64. The other place is supposed to not crash on N64, but kept crashing for me, and I'm not sure why. But in theory, this like almost plays back perfectly on N64. I may try to see what I can do for like workarounds, try to get it to sync on N64. Does work on Dolphin. If you can load GZ on Dolphin, then it should. So yeah, beginning of the run, Fairly standard, just sword, shield, escape. Gotta do West escape here. Oh yeah, and also speaking of the GZ commands, I completely forgot to mention those numbers on the side. Those are Link's angles. Those will be important for SRM. SRM is heavily based on Link's angle and trying to manipulate that angle to get extremely specific angles we need. Those won't be relevant for like the first 10 to 15 minutes, but will become extremely important after that. Split. I had my finger over the split key and I just didn't split. I was literally on it and I just didn't split. Look, I'm trying to commentate at the same time, okay? I'm busy. I got more important things. Would you guys rather have good commentary or good splits? And by good splits, I don't mean timely splits. I mean the time that it shows on the side be better. Whatever. You guys are annoying. But yeah, this beginning part, not as much to talk about. There's actually a semi-interesting thing in Kakariko, I guess. Oh yeah, people always ask why no owl skip here. So if you watched runs a while ago, back in the no SRM route, I would skip this owl. The reason for not skipping it is, the reason it saved time in the old route is because it wasted time of day. It's actually slower to skip the owl, but it wastes more time of day, because time of day is frozen while he's talking. And that wasting time of day saved time later on. In this route, time of day doesn't matter, so wasting that time isn't helping. So in this case, it is faster to just talk to the owl and not skip it. Why do tasks always slide hop at RTA, backwalk, and rolls? So side hops are theoretically faster than backwalking if done perfectly, but realistically you're not going to do them perfectly. And the time difference between perfect side hops and backwalking is pretty little. So backwalking is just far more consistent and hardly even slower. Though there are still places where you do want to side hop. Like going up and down slopes, side hopping is really good. And also if you're just like need a turn left or right, it's good to just side hop instead of like turn and then set up a new backwalk. Okay, so here's a moderately interesting thing I mentioned about CAC. So for the cuckoos, we're doing 2 cuckoos now, and then we're just gonna leave. So the cuckoos actually get saved in the pen. It actually does like set flags that say, okay, the cuckoos are still in the pen, and they're gonna still be there later on in the run. And so, and also, one reason it saves time is, in the previous route, what we were going to do is just do a cuckoo dive into the well, instead of a Navi dive. And if you just go straight to the well as quickly as possible, a Navi dive is like 4 to 5 seconds slower than a cuckoo dive. So cuckoo dive is just barely faster. And that's including like waiting a very long time for Navi to talk. But in this, we use that time waiting to collect 2 cuckoos, and so we don't have to wait at all for Navi, which effectively makes it faster than Cuckoo Dive. So here in Bottom of the Well, we get ISG and hover off this guy and do an Ocarina dive into the basement. The Ocarina like prevents the basement from loading while you're falling through, and then you can swim through the invisible water here to clip through the ceiling here and get bomb shoes early. Turn down my mic. Is my mic extra loud? That's weird. I tried turning down gain a little bit. I guess I'll try not to talk too loud. Okay, but yeah, we can clip to Dead Hand with a damage boost out of bounds. So, getting lens here isn't actually that important. It's getting bomb shoes early that's important for going to bottom well early. It just happens to be that Lens of Truth is so convenient to go to directly after bomb shoes that we get lens early. A lot of people will ask, like, okay, why do you want to get lens so early? But it's bomb shoes that's important, not lens. Lens is just convenient. Alright, I will split here. So we're gonna Death Warp out of Bomb of the Well. Just the fastest way to get out. And now we're gonna head to Zora's River. And this is where the fun begins. No, I already have all the save states saved from making this route. I don't need to save state as I'm going along. I did not make a script, this is all improv commentary. Which is why it's bad. Okay, so Zora's River is where cool stuff starts to happen. So this is where the first use of SRM happens. So SRM is stale reference manipulation, which is when Link is holding something, the game says that, okay, Link is holding something at some certain memory address, and if Link continues to hold something while it's not there, and then something else loads in the same spot in memory, Link will continue to modify something based on his angle, because like Link is, modifying the angle of something he's holding. And in that case, the bomb shoe blew up, which means Link was no longer holding it, but the butterfly came on screen, and so the butterfly loaded in the same place as the bomb shoe that Link was holding was in, which meant his angle was actually modifying something in the butterfly. It modified a part of the butterfly to change a certain function of it into a function that gives you items. And so we're now using the butterfly to get a bunch of items. And I should actually put up a watch to show what items are going on. I think it's this one. Okay, that bottom number is the item value of the items that Link is getting right now. So that bomb shoe I just sent is loading into a spot in memory where the game is checking for what item value Link is supposed to be getting. And that bomb shoe value is extremely erratic. It's changing like extremely fast, and the smallest little details will change it. And so you can see that number at the bottom. Anytime you go out of a text box, it just like starts changing all over the place. So it's constantly giving you different items. And so what we can do is we find setups to like have the right item value come up at the right time so that we get exactly the items we want. And so we can collect a huge amount of items early with this. Now, in 100% we have a source requirement rule, which means that all items have to, for them to count for 100%, all items have to come from their original source. So like the normal place you would get them. So like, for example, you have to get the hammer from the chest in Fire Temple. You have to get all the bottles from the places where you normally get bottles. So then why is this happening? So you are allowed to use glitches to get the items early, as long as you eventually get the real version of the item. So, oh yeah, ignore this part. I like accidentally left in a little pause there. Minus 3 seconds on the macro, or on the final time. But yeah, so all of these items we have to get the real version of eventually, but having them early is really beneficial. And also there are some items you have to avoid here because some items actually make it impossible to get that's the final item in the chain. Some items actually make it impossible to get them from source later on. For example, fire arrows. If you have fire arrows in your inventory, or if you have anything in the fire arrow slot, then the fire arrows never spawn at Lake Hylia. So you could never, so we can never get fire arrows that way. Some other items kind of like that, so we have to be careful about that. So now that the item chain is over, we got a bunch of items there. Now we can start doing some more SRM, but first we're gonna get a Skulltula here. The half purpose of this Skulltula here is just to dupe over ice arrows. When you equip ice arrows, it actually equips over the bow slot, so this actually just puts a bottle over the bow slot. This is just because we're gonna have some bottle management issues a little bit later. We're gonna have some weird bottle, weird things in the bottle slots, and so we kind of need to put certain items in other bottle slots, so that just puts the bugs over the bow slot, as you can see right here, and that just lets us use it for later. And so there was also equip swap, so we can hover over an item in the have the cursor hover over an item in the menu and swap screens, and when you go back to the item screen, on the first possible frame, press a C button and up left, up right, down left, or down right, and that'll equip it over the first item it goes over in the menu. And that'll equip the item you were hovering over on the item slot that your cursor first moves to. And that's just a way to like equip a bottle without equipping the real bottle. So the fish was equipped over the Deku Stick slot, and that makes it so that when I use the fish, it doesn't get rid of the real fish. It actually just puts a bottle over the Deku Stick slot. And so now here in Lost Woods, all this random stuff it looked like I was doing there, that's all to set up memory in a very specific way. Now Link is doing SRM, he's holding something with a reference to what he was holding before, something new loaded in its place. And now what we're actually modifying here is quest status. So that was using SRM to have that invisible piece of grass modify what was on Link's quest status screen. And so actually I should have brought this up earlier. I can actually show what the quest status screen looks like now. So that SRM just gave me all those things on the quest status. So split, yeah. So all this weird stuff going on in Lost Woods, this is all using SRM to modify important parts of your inventory or other important things. And so this one is going to be modifying magic. So this SRM, I'm going to set up a specific angle that will give Link magic as soon as he picks up the grass. So I'm just going to walk in here with this angle, pick up the grass, and suddenly I have magic. But it doesn't actually give you magic like to use, it just gives you the magic bar. So this is part of why we got green potion earlier. So we need the green potion for magic, because magic is actually required for this next SRM setup. And also equip swap, as I mentioned earlier, you can like equip items over different item slots, and that allows you to equip ice arrows as child. It doesn't actually use ice arrows, but it still acts as slingshot, but it's still cool to equip. And it acts like slingshot when we don't have slingshot. So I did RBA there. This is because the next SRM is going to be getting some glitched items that we can RBA for some cool stuff. So we're going to do another SRM here. This SRM is going to modify 4 item slots in the inventory. It'll modify the item slots that normally have light arrows, Neighbor's Love, Bottle 1, and Bottle 2. So when I pick up this piece of grass and pause, you'll start to see some very weird items in those slots. Like this bomb bag. And this quiver. And so we can use this SRM to get some cool glitched items. And also this one. and one more. And so now we can RBA some of these glitched items. So RBAing Bomb Bag on C left modifies Water Temple keys. I just got 20 Water Temple keys. Catching with that blank item on C right, that is a glitched item that affects Water Temple flags. That actually lowers the water in Water Temple. And so now the first time I go into Water Temple, the water will already be lowered. And the Quiver, I haven't RBA'd it yet, but it'll be coming up soon. The Quiver is going to RBA Fire Temple keys. And also there's a few more glitched items here. You can see I have Big Oron Sword in Light Arrow slot. I have 2 TV static items. One of them, one of the TV static items is eye drops, or a glitched item that acts like eye drops. And one of them is hammer, which isn't particularly needed, but is like a, you can actually equip that hammer without equip swaps, which is a little bit nice. So this next SRM setup takes place in Zora's River to get a certain thing with the frogs loaded in the right place. So like we actually use a certain part of the code for frogs here, like the frogs you play songs for. And we need to have that loaded in a very specific place in memory. And that will stay loaded in that place in memory in Lost Woods. And we can use that for SRM. And this is going to be one of the most important SRM. So we still have to do this this item setup, just using the Bomb Shooting Boomerang there so that we can modify this piece of grass. And so this piece of grass is going to modify boots and tunics. And the way my memory is set up, this is going to give a glitched boot value and glitched tunic value. So you're going to see when I pause here, Link is going to turn blue. Suddenly Link has a different tunic, and he's going to start walking kind of weird. So that blue tunic is not the Zora tunic, that's a glitched blue tunic. And the boots are glitched boots that have no gravity, which let you fly. And if you shield damage in the air, you get recoiled back at a very high speed, which starts at super slide speed, but slowly decays. But is incredibly useful, as you might expect. So yeah, now Link can fly. And we're setting up one more SRM here. This is the big one. So I mentioned earlier that a new SRM was found for a new way to start the warping SRM, and this is it. So what we're actually going to do now, what previously was done is used SRM to modify where Farore's Wind was set. Instead, here we're going to modify a grotto entrance. So grottos like have a specific entrance they're set to set you to load from, and so we're actually changing where the grotto is supposed to take you. But what we set the grotto to take you to is a glitched value that causes the same glitched entrance thing. So when we go in this grotto with, it'll take you to a certain place based on your angle. So there I got a specific angle that loads to double defense. So this is the double defense fairy fountain. And now the glitched entrance is activated. And so to explain the glitched entrance stuff, so if you were to look at Link's entrance now, it would be like some number much bigger than it should be, much bigger than what the normal entrance list is. And what this does is the game now looks at where Link's angle is to determine what Link's entrance is and where he should warp to. So this means that anything that would normally respawn Link will actually use this glitched entrance, which means it'll look at Link's angle, which means you can go anywhere you want just by setting up a certain angle. So for example, I'm going to void out here. Doing a void out makes the game look at, okay, where did you last load? What's your last entrance? And it'll respawn you there. So I'm going to set up an angle. This is going to set up an angle 0, 1, 4, 3. There's actually a truncated 0 at the beginning. The first 2 numbers determine the map, so this will load to map 0, 1, which is Dodongo's Cavern, at the same coordinates where I began in the Fairy Fountain. And so, yeah, now we can just warp pretty much anywhere. So there's a few different ways you can use the entrance. You can either void and use Furrow's Wind, voiding and Furrow's Wind will use your specific coordinates and room number. So for example, I'm going to set Furrow's Wind here, and now if I were to warp back to this Furrow's Wind, it would load at these specific coordinates and this specific room loaded. Split. The same thing applies to voiding. It will use the last door you entered to determine your coordinates and room number. And then if you die or get caught by a wall master, then it'll set you at a specific entrance. So it won't care about your coordinates or room number, it'll just set you at a specific entrance on a specific map. Oh yeah, and I should explain, for F-boots that have no gravity, jump slashing is the one thing that does force gravity, so anytime you want to fall, you have to jump slash. So there, I use F-boots to get out of bounds and void out with an angle to Shadow Temple. So this is Shadow Temple right now, very far out of bounds. But being very far out of bounds doesn't matter because of F-boots, because we can just fly inbounds. And you may also notice, it'll be more obvious when Link falls here, that Link is kind of tilted. Link looks very weird. Some glitched warps just happen to change Link's rotation value, and so sometimes Link gets rotated a bit weirdly. It's just a side effect of certain warps. It looks funny, it's usually not too useful, but you can actually use it to move under rounded collision. You can't really use it to get under, like, actual walls. But it's pretty interesting. And so now I'm just collecting some gold skull souls in Shadow Temple. And so I mentioned how voiding out and using Furrow's Wind will load specific room numbers. So so the room I loaded into Shadow Temple was the same room number as that room in Dodongo's Cavern. And so we can actually use that a lot for some really cool routing, where in previous routes, the way you would route a run is, you know, you'd probably do all dungeons in one go, right? You want to do all dungeons in one go, you want to minimize backtracking. In this route, the way things are routed is not that way. We actually are looking at what room numbers can we combine, what can we go from, you know, room X in Shadow Temple to the same room X in Jabu, and then we can go change a room and then load that room from a different dungeon. And so we're doing a lot of like routing based on room number as opposed to routing based on like overworld movement, which is really interesting. So like, for example, this room is the same room that I set Furrow's Wind in back at Dodongo's Cavern, and I split. So now I can warp back to Dodongo's Cavern, and this will, I'll come over here and enter another room, and set Furrow's Wind here. And this will let me load into a different room in Shadow Temple. So again, I'm using my angle to warp, so there I had angle 708. 7 is Shadow Temple, so that's why I go directly to Shadow Temple. It might, something to note about the tilt, it'll look like every time I go to Shadow Temple specifically I get tilted. This is just coincidence because the fastest angle to get to Shadow Temple is 1 ESS left from 0, which takes you to 708, and 708 just happens to be an angle that tilts you. There will be some tilted angles in some other places too. So you can actually, that's actually one place where the tilt is actually useful. You can actually use it to clip through that gate there. And now we can skip the boat just by bomb shoe recoiling across the entire river with F-boots. Yeah, no bell. This is to get this one Skulltula that's really far away. So now here will be the first use of Giant's Knife. So this is actually Giant's Knife, not Big Goron Sword. But with that item slot SRM that I did earlier on, that actually put Giant's Knife in the item slot of Light Arrows. And with Equip Swap, you can actually equip it as Child. So Child is now actually able to use it. And this actually has a few important uses. So one you would think obviously is just combat because it's just a stronger sword. We do use it sometimes, but we actually try not to do it too much because, again, it is Giant's Knife and not Big Goron Sword, which means it will break. It only has 8 hits, and so we have to be really careful with it. But the surprising more important use of it is actually angle setups. So Big Goron Sword actually gives you 2 new options for angle setups. I actually haven't talked about angle setups yet, I probably should. So we have to get very specific angles to do all these warps and all these SRMs. And the way we get these extremely precise angles is with setups. We can actually, there are various movements you can do in this game that will always change your angle by a set amount. And you can combine these to find very easy setups to get very precise angles. And we even have a program to do it. Shoutouts to Save State, who made a program where you can just input angles you want, input what movement options you have to get those angles, and it'll spit out the easiest way to get those angles. Super useful. And so going back to what I said about Giant's Knife, Giant's Knife actually gives you 2 extra options for finding angles, which is regular sword slash and shielding, and quick spin and shielding. And those 2 extra movement options, surprisingly or unsurprisingly, I guess, if you know why, or like, essentially it makes a lot of setups much easier. And so yeah, you can just, a lot of setups become so much more simple. One thing that's really rough about all these setups, as you might imagine, is just like remembering all these setups, because there's so many steps to all of them. And Big Goron Sword makes them both easier, or at least for a lot of setups, it makes them both easier and faster, which is really nice. And so we warp again to Jabu. Oh yeah, I didn't even talk about the big jump in Fire Temple, but yeah, you can, with F-Boots, if you try to like climb a high ledge, Link will just jump up to grab it and not fall down and just high jump for a very long time. And so you can just use that to jump up really high, really fast. So here's another cool use of Big Goron Sword. This was, in the previous route, this was one of the most annoying setups, was this angle to 101, which is Dodongo's Cavern from the boss room, but Big Goron Sword makes that setup pretty easy. So you just die there. This will put you at a specific entrance rather than coordinates, which puts you at this entrance right in front of King Dodongo's room. We're not going to go to King Dodongo, we're just going to set Foro's Wind here and then warp to Water Temple. And so this room in Water Temple, I should turn on collision view actually. This room in Water Temple is the same room with the long shot. So this is the room that has the long shot chests, and I can use this recoil to fly all the way up. The room you loaded in, the room loaded is, or like the coordinates loaded is from the room with like the tektites and the rolling rocks and stuff. And so you can float all the way up to this room. I've actually been forgetting to use collision view, I should do that more. But yeah, you can float all the way up here, get long shot very quickly. And this room is also really cool. You can float around this room and drop a bomb to kill this Skulltula. Drop into it with a jump slash. Turn around to get an angle to warp back to Dodongo's cavern. And go straight back here. And I need more bombs here, so I'm actually gonna dupe this bomb pot by making the bomb spawn, leaving the room, re-entering, and grabbing it again. This lets me get 2 bomb drops, just need some extra bombs. And this is gonna go, this is gonna be another warp to Shadow Temple. My tunic is not clean now, that's just the lighting in Dodongo's cavern. So I'm gonna warp back to Shadow and do another recoil here. I forgot to turn off a watch I don't need anymore. So this is going to be a pretty far recoil to the room with the 1 pot and a gold Skulltula. So I can go straight to this room. This is a room pretty deep in Shadow Temple, so this saves a lot of time. And I can do another setup here. Oh yeah, there's one example of equipping that hammer in the bottle 1 slot that I got from Glitched Item SRM. And it's just a free equip, you don't even need to equip swap it, which is kind of nice. This is live. And so that death angle setup is to Spirit Temple from the boss room, which gets me straight into this room. What's really nice is like the decently far into the dungeon, like the middle part, with easy access to this room over here with this Skulltula and then another Skulltula down here. Then grab this skull, set up another angle, and jump through this hole in the wall. And void out, and this is another angle set up to Shadow Temple. And this is Dead Hand's room to get the hover boots. So I can just fly over to Dead Hand and fight him while tilted. Which is actually a kind of awkward fight. When tilted like this, it's actually a little bit weird to hit Dead Hand. Though it's doable. One thing to note here, I don't use the Giant's Knife here. It technically would be faster, but it would only save 1 hit. Because Dead Hand's health is kind of weird. You would think it would save more, but it doesn't really. And so it's not really worth an extra equip. I'll split. And there's the hover boots. So 1 more warp here. This is going to go to Bottom of the Well. And this is one of the rooms with the Skulltulas. We'll just fall right in. And I'm going to set Furrow's Wind here. This Furrow's Wind is actually, this particular Furrow's Wind spot is going to be used quite a bit. This is a really convenient spot, like it's in room 0 with coordinates like kind of far away from the main area, which ends up being pretty good for a lot of warps we end up doing. And right there's like a little gap in the ceiling you can use to get into this room early. And here I'm going to die with angle 0. 0 is Deku Tree, so this is going to take me straight to Deku. And so this first thing I'm going to do in Deku is another SRM setup. So SRMs are not done, there's still going to be plenty more SRMs coming up. So this is a setup for an SRM that's going to modify some flags. Specifically, this will modify flags for Talon and Epona. So this is actually going to make Epona freed and Talon have been woken up at Hyrule Castle, and so he's in Lon Ranch. Which means we don't have to actually go steal Epona, and we don't have to go wake up Talon, which is really nice. But that hasn't happened yet, that was just the setup for it, that was just setting up memory in the right place. Epona is not an item, Epona is not required. Epona is only indirectly required for Gerudo Archery. So we're gonna fly over here and get Slingshot. And now I'm gonna head to Lost Woods to actually do the SRM. So the fastest way to do this is just gonna be to die instead of Void Out or use Furrow's Wind. The reason for this is Furrow's Wind is still set at Bottom of the Well, and we kind of want to keep that Furrow's Wind set at Bottom of the Well. And if I voided out here, you can actually void out here, but if I voided to Lost Woods, it would load the wrong room, and then things wouldn't be set up properly. So we have to do a quick death here. And this gets to Lost Woods, so we can actually do the SRM. So that the memory set up in Deku Tree, specifically where the fish was dropped, like the spot in memory where the fish was, is still loaded in memory. It's never unloaded yet because nothing overrode it. And so that's still in memory, so we can actually use that to do SRM here. This will make this invisible piece of grass modify some flags, and right there, that just made it so that Epona is now freed and Talon is now woken up and at Lon Ranch. And I'm going to set up an angle for Zora's River. Jump out of bounds. And now here's Zora's River. Gonna go over here, talk to this guy to get magic beans. This ends up being like 3 seconds faster than if you got magic beans at the beginning. And we can also use Bean Guy to jump and recoil over here to this heart piece. And then here, jump down here, and talk to the frogs. Split. I shouldn't even have a split there, that's a short split. Okay, so for the frogs, back when I did Quest Status SRM, that gave me a lot of songs, but it did not give me all of the songs. It's actually not possible to get everything you want. In fact, I am missing one song in particular. I'm missing Song of Time, which means I can't actually finish the frogs. That sounds bad, right? But one of the items I got from the original item chain in Zora's River was Odd Potion, and you can use Odd Potion RBA to get Song of Time. The problem is it also deletes Song of Storms, so I have to... The frogs are actually like done in 2 parts here. So I'm going to play all the songs I have for the frogs right now, and I'm going to leave the Song of Time one, and then I'm going to have to RBA, and that'll delete Song of Storms but give me Song of Time, and then I can finish the frogs. This took about 4 days to make. So yeah, here, the last one I have is Song of Time to do. So I'm gonna just set up RBA here. Catch bugs on B with Odd Potion on C right. That's gonna give me... It actually gives me all 3 spiritual stones and Song of Time. The stones actually will be important later. And so now I finally have Song of Time. And finally finish up the frogs. And now we're going to Zora's River. Or not going to Zora's River, going to Lost Woods. But first, there's going to be one more setup done in Zora's River. We need to wait for that Octorok to shoot a popcorn, pull its shoe there, and that just sets up frogs in the right place in memory for another SRM done in Zora's River. It's actually like a double SRM. Yeah, popcorn. We call the rock that the Octorok shoots out popcorn. It definitely looks like a popcorn. Yeah, Giant's Knife, holding Giant's Knife as child looks really cool. So I had to play Sunsong there because we need to do some warping later and it has to be daytime. I actually forgot to mention that the glitched warping, you can make it so it happens only at daytime or only at nighttime, but not both. And so the way we set it up in this run, we have it as daytime warps. So every time it warps, we have to be daytime. So here's more setup. So this is actually a double SRM. There's two SRMs essentially being set up at the same time. The stuff with the bugs and the bomb shoes I did just there. This is to do another grotto entrance modification SRM. So this is going to modify the grotto entrance in this area again. This is not going to set it to a glitched entrance though. This is actually going to set it to a regular entrance, just a special one. This is going to set it to meeting Zelda, but the cutscene, like the second part of the cutscene of meeting Zelda. And so here is another SRM. So that stuff I did in Zora's River with like the bomb shoe and the Octorok, this is what this is for, is when this, so I actually have to dupe over that glitched item that I had. I don't actually want that glitched item, that was like a side effect glitched item that I wanted to get rid of, so I duped over it there. So this Gold Skulltula is going to be what starts the next SRM. So if you remember how I did the SRM in Zora's River to get a bunch of items, this is going to be basically the same thing. Now it might seem weird, like why am I doing the same SRM just later on? Well, there's some items that either I couldn't get earlier or would not have helped very much earlier that would help a lot now. So there are more butterflies over here. And same thing, I'm gonna pick up this butterfly and I can actually start to modify items that this butterfly will give using SRM. So the first thing I'm gonna do is set up an angle for bomb shoes and set this bomb shoe down. And suddenly I'm gonna get a bunch of bomb shoes here. Bomb shoe, there's gonna be a free bomb shoe refill all the way up to 50. Now holding the sword like that does not change its hitbox. Its hitbox is actually still like really big in front of you, just like adult. And now this next SRM, or next item setup is gonna be for Poacher Saw. And Poacher Saw, I forgot I should set up my other watch here. This watch is for the current item value. And so, so Poacher Saw is one of the reasons why we have to do a second item SRM. So remember I had Odd Potion before, and that Odd Potion was important for the frogs. So I couldn't have Poacher Saw earlier because that would have messed with Odd Potion. And Poacher Saw is important because I actually have to delete some songs. So I mentioned how sometimes it's impossible to get certain things from source if you already have them. That's true with quite a few songs, but we needed the songs early for the frogs from item slot, or not, from quest status SRM. And so we have to get the Poacher Saw here to RBA songs away, not to give songs, but actually delete songs this time. And deleting songs is so we can actually get songs from source later on. And now this is setting up a chain for a bunch of other items. So these items are important for various reasons. Bomb bag, we could not get a bomb bag before getting the real bomb bag, or else it'd be impossible to get real bomb bag from source. The slingshot bag, getting any slingshot bag before getting real slingshot won't matter, because slingshot always sets your bag to 30. Big Poe will be really useful later on. Bunny Hood, we could have gotten earlier. Bunny Hood's actually one of the items that could have been either chain. Same with Quiver. And then finally, when that's all done, we enter this grotto, and this grotto, which like 2 minutes ago was modified to be this Zelda entrance, finally we enter it and start this. And this actually skips a large portion of this cutscene. This cutscene is normally 3 parts, and you skip the first 2 with this. So this cutscene is kind of special because it's not a cutscene with like a specific cutscene value, like most cutscenes work, where you could actually like wrong warp into it. You cannot actually wrong warp into this cutscene. It's actually like a cutscene based on your entrance, but it's also weird because it won't happen from a respawn. So that means like the regular glitched warping you do won't cause this cutscene to play either. So we specifically have to use a glitched grotto to set the entrance specifically to this value, and it loads this cutscene. And this skips a large portion of the cutscene. And so this is to get Zelda's letter and Zelda's lullaby. So Zelda's lullaby has a very easy cutscene skip where you can just side hop out of bounds, jump slash, cutscene triggers out of bounds, and you void out. And something I forgot to mention about the glitched entrances. So anytime you go through a normal entrance, then you no longer have the glitched entrance. And so that's why voiding out there didn't warp me somewhere strange. It's because that cutscene is just a regular entrance. Same with like when I entered Lost Woods from Zora's River, that also deactivated the glitched entrance. But I can reactivate it at any time whenever I warp back to Furora's Wind, because Furora's Wind is still saved as having the glitched entrance. So warping back to it will automatically set my entrance to glitched again. Drink water, I should do that. Yes, my throat was getting very dry. So yeah, the Saria song. So this is one reason why I had to use the Poacher Saw RBA to delete songs. Because the Saria song cutscene does not play unless you don't have Saria song in your inventory. So I had to delete Saria's in order for this cutscene to play. Yeah, guards are really interesting because they specifically check if you have like -4 on your Y velocity. And F-boots set it to 0, so guards literally can't catch you with F-boots. But we skip guards anyway, so it doesn't even matter. Okay, one more SRM setup coming up. This one, we have to do the actual setup here in Sacred Forest Meadow. I have to enter and exit Forest Temple just to set things up properly. This setup only works if I don't warp in from a warp song. So I had to do that. So that little setup just loaded fish in the right place in memory, and that fish in the right place in memory is going to allow this next SRM to happen. So I can warp back to Lost Woods to set up the next SRM. So this next SRM is going to be another flag SRM. This one is going to set Gerudo Carpenter flags. So in Gerudo Fortress, you know, like the Carpenters you have to rescue, this will free 3 of the 4 Carpenters. So this is actually an SRM we did in the last route. And the reason we did it in the last route was just for the Carpenters. Turns out there was another flag that it set that we didn't realize was super useful, is that it also sets a flag for the Zelda escaping Hyrule Castle cutscene being watched. So you know that cutscene where like Zelda's fleeing Hyrule Castle and she throws the ocarina in the water and stuff? That cutscene's gone now. That cutscene just got set as watched. And the ocarina is now in the water, which means in the previous route we had to do this like big setup to skip the cutscene. And it was really long and annoying, and we don't have to do that. The cutscene's just gone, so we can just pick up the Ocarina. Which is also important why we RBA'd. That's another important reason we RBA'd Odd Potion earlier. Is because that Odd Potion RBA also gives you all 3 spiritual stones. And those are needed for the Ocarina to actually appear in the water, combined with the flag being set. And so yeah, Ocarina game, well tilted, wearing bunny hood, funny. Oh yeah, I should talk about bunny hood. So right before I went to meet Zelda, right before I entered the grotto to go meet Zelda, so when you talk to Zelda, you get Zelda's letter, and Zelda's letter goes over where bunny hood is in the item inventory. So I want to keep bunny hood, and the way I kept bunny hood is by equipping it twice, once normally and once with equip swap. And Zelda's letter goes over the normal one, but not the equip swapped one. And so now I can keep bunny hood equipped, so I can sell it to Runner Guy later. The catch is that if I ever unequip bunny hood, then I'll lose it forever. So I have to keep bunny hood equipped until I sell it. And so we try to sell it as soon as possible, but it's not really, it's kind of slow to like do it actually as soon as possible, so we do some stuff first. Sorry, a song? Maybe. But probably not. Ruined. So yeah, bunny hood is gonna have to be equipped until I actually go sell it. Why didn't I manipulate it? Actually, that's a good question. Why I didn't manipulate it? Because I would have liked to. There's a problem with that though, is that GZ save states actually don't really work properly after an SRM has already been done. So like once I walk through the tunnel with the angle I need to set up the invisible grass, after that point, GZ save states don't really work properly. So I actually cannot save state after that. So right here, actually everything from going through the tunnel with the angle I needed up to this void here was actually done in one take because GZ save states wouldn't really work properly. Split. That was another case of I literally had my finger on the split button and I didn't split. So there's another warp to Spirit Temple, and I'm tilted. Almost perfectly 180. So this is with the same coordinates that I warped into Lost Woods with, which is the same coordinates that I set for Rosewind at Bottom of the Well with. And this is really cool because it loads into a specific room in Spirit Temple near a void that you can actually hit from the ceiling there. And this void in Spirit Temple is a really interesting special void where most voids will check your last room you entered and your coordinates and load you there. This void will always load you at the entrance that your angle is. So anytime I want to go to a specific entrance and I don't want to use like coordinates and room number and stuff, I can use this Spirit Temple void. And it's super useful because there's a lot of times where warping with specific coordinates isn't really going to be that great, but warping to a specific entrance is. Just like Suns here. And Suns is, again, another example, just like Saria's song, of one of the songs I could not get if I didn't delete it. So that's another reason why the poacher saw RBA had to happen to delete Sun's song. So I actually didn't have Suns for that short period of time until I just got it again there. And so, one cool thing about the Getting Sun song cutscene is it actually sets time of day perfectly for Dampe. So I don't even have to worry about that. Yeah, no more stairs, because we can just warp in. I can turn off this watch. I keep forgetting to turn off my watches. Yeah, cool little grave pull there. Oh yeah, and because I need to have Bunny Hood equipped for longer, I intentionally just have it equipped more often, or like actually use it more often, just for fun, because everyone loves Bunny Hood. So here's Dampe. Gee, I sure hope it's first try. Wow. So, fun fact, that was actually real first try. That was actually first take. Like when I was recording it, it was actually first try. I split when I leave the area, so I didn't forget. Well, it was like 1.5 try because my first actual try, I was Dampe wasn't on the dirt patch, but like first actual dig on the dirt patch, it was first try. So I can just float up here. Prove it. It was streamed. Go back in the VOD. So now some Cax Skulltula collecting. It was a macro, how do I control RNG so the button presses correspond? So the macro starts at a specific save state, and that save state has a specific RNG set, and then from there, the same button inputs will always result in the same RNG from there. So I gotta collect all these Skulltulas, and then Sun Song for daytime, because I still need to get the Cocoa Bottle. So I only did 2 Cocos earlier, still have to get the rest of the 5, or the other 5. And so these other 5 are pretty good with F-Boots, this is why they're delayed until later. Have I explained soft lock potential? Actually, no, I haven't. I really should. So with F-Boots, so I mentioned how it has no gravity, and the only way to fall is a jump slash, right? So if you're ever moving upwards or not moving down and unable to jump slash, it's a soft lock. So if you ever take damage in the air, you are soft locked. If you ever press a cutscene item in the air, you are soft locked. So you have to be very careful with F-Boots. Yeah, Cocos give you gravity. Cocos actually force gravity on you. It just happens to force a lower gravity than Kokiri Boots, which makes it seem like it makes it less gravity, but actually it's just setting a specific gravity, which in this case makes it more. And also, in addition to the soft lock potential, I actually never mentioned that all the warping I'm doing and the SRM stuff, these are all with absolutely perfect angles, and messing up the angles will typically result in a crash. So this run has insane crash potential and soft lock potential, because if you mess up at all, you mess up with F-Boots, you soft lock, you mess up with warping or SRM, you crash, and split. So yeah, this run is very easy to break the game with. There are many places where your run will end if you are not careful. And so I have to give the letter to the guard here. This is to open the Happy Mask shop. This is not just to open the gate, because obviously I can just jump over it. But this actually opens the Happy Mask shop. I think this is the earliest Dampe's been, at least like post Door of Time skip, which is, you know, it's been a while since that was found. So this will just be some Deathmount Trail collecting and then re-entering Dongo's Cavern. So one thing that's kind of weird about routing this is whenever you deactivate the glitched entrances, there's various things in this route that will always force you to go through a regular entrance, which deactivates the glitched entrance stuff. And that's fine because you can reactivate it by warping with Furrow's Wind, but we can only use Furrow's Wind in a dungeon. And so we actually have to route around re-entering dungeons easily so that we can go back in a dungeon to reactivate the warping glitch. So we actually kind of route this section specifically in a way so that we pass by the Dongo's Cavern so we can just enter easily and warp away. And this will reset up the warping glitch. So I'm going to set Furrow's Wind here again. And then I'm going to use the void in the ceiling again to go to a specific entrance, and this entrance is going to be Lon Lon. I'm going to run straight into Lon Lon. And here I mentioned earlier how we did that SRM to wake up Talon, because, you know, I never actually woke up Talon at Hyrule Castle, and he is here. Proof that he was woken up by the SRM. Yeah, I do immediately lose the warping glitch there, which is unfortunate, but this is by far the fastest way to get to Lon Lon. Like, going to Lon Lon normally would just take a while. Now I can also go get Epona's song. No, I reset Furrow's Wind right before I warped away. Yeah, the reroute is finally done. Oh yeah, I should mention why no hessing. So yeah, you may notice that I'm not hessing. That's because I can't. Because F-Boots does not allow hessing. Thankfully, it alternatively allows mid-air recoils and mega side hops that fly, which is a decent substitute. Because this right here is the same speed as a Hess, though it is in a straight line. Also, cool thing here, I can mega slide up and land straight on that Skulltula token. So the reason that Skulltula token was there, that random bomb that I threw actually hit coordinates 000, which is where the game stores certain unloaded enemy data. And there were two Skulltulas in particular that were so far off screen that they were unloaded. That Skulltula on the house and this next Skulltula on the far wall. And so those were both killed by that bomb. So I can fly up to this Skulltula token here and jump out of Lon Lon. And no, this does not put you on Epona as child. But this is a quick way to get out to Hyrule Field, and this is fairly close to this grotto over here. With a heart piece in it, and this grotto is where Runner Guy usually spawns, so I can talk to Runner Guy and finally sell the bunny hood. And now I don't need to keep it equipped forever. Although actually will still be equipped for a little bit just because I don't pause for a while. Good split. I'm just gonna skip upon a song. That was so long ago. And so I talked earlier about how the Zelda Escaping Hyrule Castle cutscene was already watched because the flag for it was already set, and we already have all the spiritual stones from RBA. So the Ocarina is in the water, and I can quickly pick it up, not having to watch the cutscene. I do beat any bosses. I beat all of the bosses, except for Ganondorf, because he's not required. All the other bosses, because they all lead to medallions and stones that I must get from Source. They'll mostly be later in the run, though. I don't think I do any bosses as child. They are all in the adult section. Which, actually, I should mention, if you have seen the previous demonstration run of this route, so far it may have looked pretty similar. There's been a lot of similarities to this route as the previous one. And the early part of this run is pretty similar. The later part is where things get completely different. The adult section is completely different. A lot of things get moved from the child section to the adult section. So if things have looked similar now, they will be very different later. So now it's time for some market stuff. Actually, I kind of don't do a lot of market stuff. Normally, the normal market section in most runs is usually pretty long. It's like, you gotta do Richard, you gotta do Bombchu Bowling, Mask Shop, Archery, and that's actually all I'm doing. I'm only doing Richard. I do have to go to the Mask Shop and Bombchu Bowling eventually, but not right now. So I'm just gonna go to castle here. Oh, fun fact, if I rolled into the loading zone for Hyrule Castle here, I would have soft locked, because rolling puts you slightly farther ahead, and that would put, being slightly farther ahead would put Link like half a unit above the ground, and with F-boots he couldn't fall, and by not touching the ground you would soft lock because of the cutscene at the beginning. So that's why I actually walked into the loading zone and not rolled, because I would have soft locked. I learned that the hard way. So yeah, this is another time where we kind of have to like route in warping back, or not warping back, but re-entering a dungeon. So we're gonna play Bolero here, do some collecting here, and the Sun Song. So again, the warping has to be done at daytime, so the Sun Song is really useful because it both speeds up movement by warping me back closer to Fire Temple, so I can re-enter it, or just enter it, I guess. And also sets it to daytime, so I can actually do the warps again. And so after that Skulltula, I can re-enter Fire Temple. And I do need to actually get a Skulltula here. There's a Skulltula very close to the beginning, so it's just good to just enter here and just grab the Skulltula now instead of doing some kind of warp to it. It's actually not that close. That 1 second, I was not being very careful at all. I could do various other things to save time on the timer that I didn't do. So it's not actually that close. Also, collecting all that magic from those guys is important. This run is surprisingly tight on magic. It's very rare for any OOT run to really care about magic, but this run actually does care about it. So I still have Froze Wind set with the warping glitch, so I can warp, set an angle for Dodongo's Cavern and warp. Yeah, I could do timer freeze also. Why am I running so fast? The running fast is part of the glitched boots, the F boots that have no gravity. They also, as a side effect, just have slightly faster movement speed. So they're faster and let you fly, which is very nice. So there's a really cool recoil you can do all the way across Dodongo's Cavern. So I can go over here to the stairs room. 2 more Skulltulas in here to collect. And I wanna void out in this room, and there's the one way you can void out in this room is there's like a very small opening in the wall right below the like wooden ramps up here. So I can mega side hop through that very small opening and void out. So this is gonna load the same room number and coordinates in Spirit Temple. So here I am in Spirit, right next to this room with the Skulltula. Also need this key. So I mentioned earlier that wall masters are another way to load a specific entrance. So there's a wall master in this room and I'm going to take advantage of it. I'm going to set up a specific angle for Desert Colossus from the entrance near Mirror Shield. So it's going to take me up here, spit me out here, and there's Mirror Shield. And I recoil over to the other hand, and there's a gold Skulltula split. There's a gold Skulltula over here. This is what I need this key for. This part's actually pretty cool. So I kill the Skulltula with a chew and clip out of bounds in the wall here. Grab the Skulltula, and I need to get Requiem, and to get Requiem I need to exit the Spirit Temple entrance. So I'm going to fly out of bounds here, jump slash, and this will hit the entrance to exit out to Desert Colossus and start the Requiem cutscene. And also, this cutscene is weird with F-boots. Link is not in the place where he's supposed to be, and this causes Sheik to walk further forward, and Link to not be in the picture. And then when the camera faces Link to play the song, he's not actually going to be playing the song. Does he do the eye roll? I forgot if this does the eye roll or not. Oh, he does the eye roll. Get me out of this cutscene, man. Yeah, so Link's just chilling and doing idle animations this whole cutscene, which is great. So part of the reason for getting that mirror shield earlier, in the previous route we would actually get mirror shield during this section where we would get the soil skull, this heart piece, and mirror shield all in one go. But by getting the mirror shield earlier, I can actually make it back into Spirit Temple right before it turns night. So it's still considered day, so I can still do the warping. But it almost turning night is really good for the next place I'm going to want to warp. Or not the next place, but the place after the next place. Two or three warps from now. Soon. But first, so I'm actually trapped in this room. This room is locked off by the bars, but I can open the bars by doing a twisted bombchu through this door. So this trick called twisted bombchu, if you're doing ESS and drop the ESS and drop a chu at the same time, it like, I don't exactly know how it works, but it can like go through walls, and so you can actually have it go through there into the next room and actually hit the switch to open the door, which is super cool. So then I can set Furrow's Wind there, and those coordinates for Furrow's Wind will also be important for later. And this allows me to get to this room quickly. I can clip out of bounds when getting that Skulltula. And I get an angle for Fire Temple. It's going to warp me back to Fire. And it'll load Fire Temple with this room number loaded. This room number in Fire Temple is the same room that has the hammer. And so I will try to jump up this ledge, and I will jump all the way up Fire Temple, all the way to the hammer. Oh, she's collision view for this. I've been not using collision view for this. I've been forgetting collision view the whole time. Rip. Whatever. So now with hammer, just gotta warp away back to Spirit Temple. So I mentioned this void here in Spirit Temple that sets you to a specific entrance rather than using your room number and coordinates. And this is really useful because there's a lot of places where we want to warp to a specific entrance. So I'll actually be using it a few more times here. This is going to be one of them. This is going to go to Gerudo Valley. Set up an angle, go straight to Gerudo Valley. And this is why I wanted it to be still day but almost night. Because now it'll turn night right as I want to get the Skulltula. Perfect timing. I'm using the colloquial terms, Nat, not the technical terms, making it easier for the plebs to understand. Okay, and so I'm doing another entrance, or another angle setup here. This is going to... there's going to be an angle to go to Furrow's Wind. So I take a bunch of damage so I can die here. Gerudo Valley does not have a very good way to void out, so a death is the best way out of here. And a death is also what I want to warp to Furrow's Wind anyway. Wouldn't be very good to warp here with a angle. Or with a void. I will split. And so I also mentioned this route is pretty tight on magic, so this is actually placed in a spot in the route to like maximize your magic refill, I guess. Because for this part we actually are pretty careful with like exactly how we use magic, where we refill magic. Yeah, there will be adults soon. This run has one adult section and one child section, so adult just hasn't happened yet. So this part's actually kind of annoying, because we actually need to play 2 sun songs for 1 Skulltula, which is kind of unfortunate. But because it needs to be night for this Skulltula specifically, and then it needs to be day to warp back again, to do warping again. So I need to warp back to Forest Temple, both for being back in a dungeon so I can warp, and also to do a lot of collecting. So I actually need... So later on I am going to do a warp to get the bow early, so I won't have... I won't like go up the bow normally. But in order to do that, I actually need this cutscene in particular gone. The cutscene with the pose. If this is still here when I try to do a trick later, then it wouldn't work out. And then in addition, obviously I gotta collect the skulls anyway. So it's a good time to just start collecting some 4 simple skulls. So it's actually, one thing that kind of sucks about the 4 simple skulls is that it would actually be faster to get them as adult, but because of the thing with a bow, they have to be done as child, because otherwise I couldn't do early bow. Or like, you could then do early bow like the adult way, like the way that's done in GSR and the way it's done in GSR and MST now. But it just takes too long to set up, and so it's kind of weird where like this part of Forest Temple would be faster as adult, but the other part of Forest Temple would be faster as child, and then add in like setup time and a free warp away from being in a dungeon. It just like ends up being better as child overall. How many age-specific Skulltulas are there? If you don't count the ones in dungeons... Oh yeah, also for this, those Stalfos have to be beaten for the bow chest to appear. In the previous route, they were done at the same time as, like, I would go down, beat those Stalfos, and then warp back up, but in this route it's better to just have them beaten already. But yeah, for a number of adult exclusive Skulltulas, I remember in Max % Child, I think we got 80 skulls. So I want to say 20 if you don't count adult dungeons, or like Skulltulas in adult dungeons. So this is all the 4 simple skulls for now. Warp back to Spirit, set Rora's Wind, and gonna use the Spirit Void again. It's going to set up for an angle to Ganon's castle, specifically Ganon's castle from Shadow Trial. So I get warped right in front of Shadow Trial, and I can just jump right over Shadow Trial. Yeah, dude, using both Bigoron Sword and Kukiri Sword in a single setup is really cool. Oh, good splits. And then here, gonna warp to Water Temple. This is gonna load the same room number, but in Water Temple, and this room happens to be the room with the rolling rocks and tektites and the whirlpools and stuff. So I can recoil over here, and there's a Skulltula over here I can grab quickly. And this room also has an easy void with the whirlpools, so I can set up an angle for Forest Temple. Gonna go back to Forest finally. And just head into one of the whirlpools. I'll void out. And it'll take me to Forest. So this room, I should turn on collision view for this. So this is... I'm in one of the out-of-bounds courtyard rooms right now, but the actual room that's loaded is one of the rooms next to the bow room. So I can jump over these really tall walls, jump in here, and then this room over here is the room that's actually loaded. So I can just enter here, exit, and this will load the bow fight. And I can actually use Giant's Knife here with ISG. So with ISG, hits on the Giant's Knife do not take away, do not count for the hits that'll actually, they don't count for the hits to break your sword, so ISG is safe. So now grab the bow. And time for one more out of bounds void and warp. So this next part is pretty interesting. So this is actually going to load back to Lost Woods, and I won't actually do any collecting in Lost Woods. I'll just die. And this is going to seem really weird, and it's going to be a death to a grotto. So the way grottos work is grottos are not regular loading zones. When you enter a grotto, it'll actually just save what coordinates did you enter the grotto at, and what room number was it at. And when you leave the grotto, it'll spit you back out at, it'll spit you back out on the last map that you entered from those coordinates, or not the last map you entered, but the map you entered from, with those coordinates and the room number. So when I enter this grotto, it interprets that death as I entered this grotto from those coordinates and that room number in Lost Woods. Which means I'm gonna void out here. When I void here, it's going to void me and load the coordinates and room number from exactly where I died in Lost Woods, which is room 6 at certain coordinates, and this is near the chest minigame, the one that you use lens for, and it loads the final room, so I can just go straight to the heart piece. And so, we finally do chess game without lens. And it's almost time for part 2. Part 1 of the macro is just about up. Thanks for 10 months, Electric Fortune. Alright. Time for part 2. Begin part 2. Splice. So this is gonna actually start out with some non-warping sections. Actually, there's really only one warp left. 2 warps left. But there's gonna be a lot of just random collecting, running around the world. So there's actually a handful of places that are either not convenient to warp to, or just otherwise there's not really that much of a reason to warp to. Especially because of the time of day restrictions, because again, this warping glitch, it'll either only work during daytime or only work during nighttime. And the way we have it set up in this run, it only works during the daytime. But there's a lot of Skulltulas that require it to be nighttime. And we could do the nighttime version instead, but overall there's like a handful of costs and benefits for each one, and overall the benefits for daytime were better. But it does mean that Skulltulas cause a bit of an issue, since we can only warp at daytime, but Skulltulas are only there at night. Oh, and also I should explain why that matters with Sunsong. So with Sunsong, if you play it in an area where time does not pass, it does load you at your last entrance, which means it would try to do the glitched entrance warping. The problem is that if you have your glitched entrance warping set to night, and you play Sunsong to go from day to night, or no, if you have it set as day, and you try to play Sunsong to go from day to night, it'll actually interpret it as you're warping at night. And if you warp at night with the day warping active, it actually always loads you to Deku Tree, which we don't want to go to. So essentially that means that Sunsong, like, almost technically we can warp with, but not actually. But yeah, anyway, Goron City here. This Goron City is a really cool strat here. So we can fly up here and talk to the Goron. For the bomb bag, which I will split for. Now for the heart piece, this is really cool. So I'm gonna slide up and pull a chew before the cutscene starts. This is actually gonna activate SRM, because this cutscene happening with the bomb chew in Link's hand, something is gonna load into that place where the bomb chew once was, because it exploded, and the heart piece loads in there. So you just end up carrying the heart piece, and it kind of floats in the air for a second, but it falls down. You can grab the heart piece. And you can fly in over here. So that's actually one of the SRMs that was found before, like, SRM truly was known. That was actually something Glitchymon found on accident a few years ago. And it was just like, oh, funny glitch, haha. And then it turned out, oh, it was SRM. And we need that fairy for a glitch coming up later, an adult. So this part, cutscene pointers are unfortunately really important here. So the extra watches I have on screen right now are cutscene pointer data. So last cutscene was just that warping cutscene into Lake Hylia, and that's going to be the cutscene pointer for another SRM wrong warp that's going to be happening soon. And this cutscene pointer data has to be a very specific value, or else things will not work properly. It'll happen soon. So when I drop the bugs here, I need to have all of the bugs despawn before the Skulltula spawns, or else this doesn't work out properly. So this is why I wait an extra long time here. This looks pretty dumb, but I have to make sure that the Skulltulas despawn, or else the cutscene pointer values will turn to a bad value, and things will not work. So I warp up here, grab the heart piece, kill the Skulltula. This has to happen in this order also. And I have to pull a bomb before the token pops out. And then that number turns to FF0000. And that is the cutscene pointer value you want for the upcoming wrong warp. And so now it's fishing. Yeah, I meant bugs despawn. Did I say something else? I meant bugs despawning. Yeah, and I unequip F boots there. Finally, the time to get rid of F boots. So I cannot actually do fishing with F boots because I need to go in the water, which requires falling, but I can't fall because I don't have sword, or I can't use sword in the fishing pond. So it's actually literally impossible to. You could actually catch a fish, but you couldn't do the gold scale thing. So I need to get rid of F boots here, but. The child section's almost over anyway. Don't really need the F-boots anymore. They served their purpose. They did a lot of good. They did what they needed to. They got the job done. And so here I get the gold scale. I get the heart piece from this fish, but I'm gonna get one more thing here. I'm gonna steal the fishing rod. Because this guy doesn't need it, and I do. Actually, I don't need the fishing rod, I just need glitch side effects from it. But we actually intentionally steal the rod here. We're gonna mega flip over here, go grab Rudo's letter. So the reason for stealing the rod is I need to warp back to Lost Woods with the glitched entrance value. And the fastest way to warp back, instead of going back to a dungeon, is actually steal the rod, and if I pause in the water while the B button is dimmed, then the rod turns into blank B. You'll see it happen as I pause when I enter Zora's Domain here. Fishing. Yeah, no animation for Rudo's letter because I already have all 4 bottles. And so you see now I have blank B. So when I have blank B, if you do down A on a ladder, then you can actually use Fro's Wind outside of dungeons. And so this is going to be the fastest way to warp back to Lost Woods with the glitched entrance. So now with the heart piece, I just want to warp back to Lost Woods. So I do down A here, combined with blank B, lets me use Fro's Wind. Do a setup here to go to Lost Woods. So here's going to be the last child SRM. So this is a really interesting SRM. This is another sort of double SRM, like that one done for items and the Zelda Warp earlier. So you may remember from the previous route that there's an SRM you can do to become adult, and I haven't done that yet. And haven't really needed to do that, because the primary reason for that in the previous route was to equip Mirror Shield for Twinrova, but we're going to beat Twinrova as adult in this route. But there's another side effect of it, which is it sets your stored adult equips, which means that the next time you become adult, it will check your stored adult equips and say, oh, these were the equips you last had as adult, let's re-equip those. And the reason that's really important is because that means that we can use Bottle Adventure to have Fro's Wind on B the first time becoming adult, or the first real time becoming adult. So right here, this is going to be adult SRM, I'm now adult. It's going to store my adult equips when I leave the area. But I'm not done yet. There's going to be a second SRM done. So with the same SRM setup, but a different angle, we can do an SRM to modify cutscene value. And that had to be done. I had to like move all the way to the corner in this really awkward way, because I had to get to the corner and despawn the grass without changing the angle. If I change the angle at all, it would crash. That's why I had to do that weird like movement to the corner. So now I'm doing a setup to have just the right angle and cutscene value so I can play Sun Song, which will cause a warp to the light arrow cutscene. But this is the last part of the light arrow cutscene. This isn't just the beginning of it. This is the end, or near the end of it. So the light arrow cutscene is actually a 5-part cutscene, and this is the 5th part. So this skips the first four parts of it. Unfortunately, the 5th part is the longest part, but this still skips like 3 minutes of cutscene, which is really nice. Almost skipping the light arrow cutscene. Yeah, this is the closest we get, pretty much. Zelda was Zelda the whole time. Yeah, dude, this run avoids spoilers. This is a spoiler-free run. Oh yeah, and this cutscene is also kind of weird. I'm not sure if it's because I'm child or because of the warp into it, but yeah, there's certain parts of it that are kind of weird, like Zelda just appearing in the rupee. Actually, I think it might be because of F-boots. F-boots kind of mess with some like cutscene commands, I guess. Oh yeah, I don't have F-boots. Yeah, never mind. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I assume it's just his child. I actually should test that myself. And so finally, the child section is about to be over. I do one last equip for a long shot on C right. That's going to be so that bottle adventure gets activated, because remember I mentioned how my stored adult equips were stored during the adult SRM. So that means that the game sees my last adult equip as, oh, I had bottle on B. And also, as a side note, I also had Big Oron Sword on B, or Giant's Knife, or not on B, on C. Which is also important. But because the bottle on B, that means the next time I become adult, it's going to activate Bottle Adventure, look at my child C-Right item, and put an item on B based on the item value. Longshot corresponds to item value 13, which is Furora's Wind, and so as adult, I will have Furora's Wind on B. Please be blue in the cutscene. I will. So actually, yeah, I should mention that too. So the glitch tunic I had, the blue tunic that was not Zora tunic, that's just a glitch tunic. That also gets stored in my adult equips, which means adult also gets the glitch tunic too, which is actually really cool because adult cannot use F-boots. F-boots will crash. So it would seem like, oh, then adult can't get it, period, right? Well, he can, just not the boots. So he can get the glitch tunic, but not the glitch boots. Yeah, I do end on blue. Link stays blue the entire run. Light arrow cutscene before Master Sword cutscene is just weird, yeah. There it is. Oh yeah, also, I have Deku Shield equipped. You can't see it, but I promise it's there. It's just invisible as adult. Yeah, gauntlets, because I got gold gauntlets earlier from various warps that led to Ganon's castle. Why is it not possible to fly all cutscenes? Not all cutscenes. So first of all, not everything will line up properly in memory. And second, a lot you actually probably could, but you wouldn't necessarily want to because some cutscenes are some things you get from source in a cutscene. Like for example, you actually get the light medallion from that cutscene. So if we skip that cutscene, that would be bad because then we wouldn't get light medallion from source. Although something like this cutscene we don't get anything from. This would be nice to skip, but it's not always worth doing an SRM just to skip a cutscene because SRMs themselves take a while to set up, and so we need to know that it's faster to set up the cutscene SRM, or the SRM to skip the cutscene, or like to set the flag for the cutscene done, but also it not being a cutscene that will actually skip an item that you actually need from source. And so as far as we are aware in this run, this is the best way. Yeah, in this run, Master Sword is the longest cutscene, although Light Arrow cutscene is longer normally, but since we skip a lot of it, not in this run. So here, first warp is to Death Mountain Crater. And we're gonna skip the Bolero cutscene by falling out of bounds here. Oh yeah, so I should talk about Bigoron's Sword. Or before I talk about Bigoron's Sword, I need to talk about the next part. So this next part is going to look very silly. So I need to play Sunsong just to make it night, because we actually need to set up the warping glitch again as adult separately. And we're going to do adult night warps instead of daytime warps like the child. And then I have to play Bolero to warp into Death Mountain Crater from Death Mountain Crater. This looks very dumb, I promise it's important. It's for cutscene pointer stuff. So if I didn't do that, then upcoming run warps would crash because cutscene pointers are really stupid and annoying. And this just sets cutscene pointer to stuff that actually works. It was just the best option I could find. So, gotta grab that magic, because again, magic's really tight. That one magic jar is actually the difference between this working out and not. So yeah, Bigoron's Sword, or Giant's Knife. So, Giant's Knife is currently equip swapped over Deku Sticks, and the item slot that Giant's Knife was actually in was the Light Arrow slot. But I just got Light Arrows, which means that it's not there anymore because Light Arrows overrode Giant's Knife, which means if I ever unequip Giant's Knife, I lose it forever. Or at least lose the ability to equip it on a C button. So, it will actually be equipped for almost the entirety of the entire adult route. Which has its pros and cons. It's a bit weird. But just to talk about it for a little bit. So one, it's really good for setups, as I mentioned earlier. It adds a lot more options for setting up stuff, which is really good, makes setups easier and faster. And it's good for combat. We actually will be getting Bigoron's Sword relatively early in the adult section, so I could actually use it for combat a bit. But having it equipped the entire time is kind of bad for pauses. But at the same time, adult would need to equip Hammer a lot because of the lack of a sword. So it kind of doesn't cost any extra pauses that would otherwise be used for Hammer. So it mostly works out pretty well, but there are some times where like it does cause a few extra pauses, but overall seems beneficial. Okay, so here's the setup for the glitched grotto entrance again. This has to be done separately as adult. The glitched grotto entrances, you can only set it up for child day, child night, adult day, or adult night at once. And so child already had it set up and it's done now, so now we have to do it as adult. As adult, we're going to do night instead of day. Split. Because we're going to be doing a lot of warping around for Skulltulas. So this sets it glitched. I'm going to do a glitched entrance for 1378, which is Baronade's room. And here's Baronade, right in this grotto in Lost Woods. You all remember finding Baronade here, right? No, if child did night, it wouldn't affect adult at all. So they can both do night warps, they can both do day warps, it's just only one can be set up at a time. It just happened to be that the way the routing worked out, adult was better with night and child was better with day. So I'm going to set Faro's Wind here. So this is going to set Faro's Wind at the coordinates and room number of where I entered from here. So it'll be the coordinates of the beginning of Baronade's room, and the room number is room 1. And the room number is really important because most boss battles take place in room 1, not room 0, which is where most entrances to most maps are. And so coming up is a cutscene skip. So I have to use Din's Fire on the edge of this blue warp so that I can gain control during it. And this is going to let me set up for a wrong warp / cutscene skip. I also need to die. This is what the fairy was for earlier. I'm going to die and have this fairy revive me. And I need to use Faro's Wind frame perfectly right as the warp is going away. And I don't need a specific angle for this, but when I warp away, it'll always take me to Deku Tree. So whenever you warp away from a blue warp that would normally cause a wrong warp, then it'll always take you to Deku Tree. And the same is going to be true for Fire Temple here after I beat Volvagia. But when I warp into Volvagia's fight, I warp under the arena, and Volvagia actually is hittable under the arena. And so I can do a bunch of damage to Volvagia before the fight even starts. What? And so the actual fight will be extremely quick. Yes, it's a wrong warp. And so yeah, this is also what the cutscene pointer stuff was for, why I mentioned I had to play Bolero an extra time. That was so that these wrong warps would work, the one from Baronade and Volvagia. If it didn't, then they would just crash, or at least one of them would crash. All of my other options that I tried but couldn't get to work, at least one of them crashed. And I need both of them not to, and Bolero was the only option I could find. Quick fight though. You can damage Volvagia before the fight, but you cannot kill Volvagia before the fight. Killing Volvagia always requires stunning with the hammer and doing an attack after being stunned. And then I warp away here. I will split. So again, this is gonna always force me to go back to Deku Tree. And now I'm gonna head to Spirit Temple. and I will be in an invisible void. So this is Spirit Temple near the entrance, but with room 1 loaded, and the normal entrance is room 0. But this is important because room 1 normally has that silver block on the right side, and with that not loaded, I have free access to the void next to it. And that void again sets me in a specific entrance, which is really important because I can just go to a specific entrance in Lost Woods. Go back to Lost Woods and enter this grotto here after I collect the Skulltula. And I mentioned earlier how grottos set your specific room number and coordinates when you enter it. So I'm going to enter this grotto in a very specific way. Entering it's going to be normal, but exiting it is going to be glitched. It's going to take me to Gerudo Training Grounds with room 6 loaded. Room 6 is the same room number as that room in Lost Woods. This is right next to the room with all the chests. I just leave and re-enter. And I'm right here near ice arrows. Just do a weird shot. Grab my ice arrows. Key dupe. Yeah, you can do key dupe there, I guess. Now I'm gonna go back out here and void in the lava, and this will still load me into wherever I load next is gonna be room 6 loaded, and I'm gonna go to Ice Cavern. And room 6 in Ice Cavern is really important. It's the room with Iron Boots. It's the room where you get Iron Boots and learn Serenade, and the Serenade cutscene is gonna immediately activate because the trigger for the Serenade cutscene. The trigger for the Serenade cutscene is just that room being loaded and having Iron Boots in your inventory. And I had Iron Boots in my inventory because of getting it back at the chain in Lost Woods. And so by warping there, the cutscene activated immediately, and I voided out immediately to skip the cutscene. But wait, shouldn't that warp me somewhere else and cause a crash or something? No, because Ice Cavern specifically, no other map has this, Ice Cavern specifically, if you void out, it will always take you to the beginning of Ice Cavern. And it's hard-coded that way. It's not load at your last entrance, which is always going to be Ice Cavern. It's specifically hard-coded to be Ice Cavern entrance. So even though you void out with the glitched entrance, it doesn't crash or void you somewhere or warp you somewhere else. It'll always be the beginning of Ice Cavern, which is incredibly convenient because otherwise this would just be useless, or most likely useless. And then we can do Ice Cavern in reverse, go back and get Iron Boots from source correctly, backwards, and then we can go backwards through the rest of Ice Cavern to grab the Skulltulas and Heart Piece. Why is that hard-coded? No idea. Using Iron Boots to get Iron Boots, exactly. And now I got all the stuff in Ice Cavern, gonna do a warp back to Spirit Temple. And, oh yeah, I should be using Collision View for this room, so you can actually see what's going on here. So I'm setting up another warp with the Void. This is going to load to top of Death Mountain Trail, right next to the Goron. So I can give him a Shadow Medallion, which is actually eye drops. So this glitched item that's been in the Neru's Love item slot for this entire run is a glitched item that acts like eye drops, so I can give it to the Goron. But glitched eye drops themselves don't always work. The game actually checks your adult trade item slot to make sure that the item there is at least prescription or higher. And if you saw, I did have prescription in my item slot. That was from getting Frog back at the Lost Woods item SRM. And the Frog just turns into prescription if you ever die or save and reset. So that's what allows the glitched eye drops to even work. So that just gives me claim check. I don't have the Goron sword yet. So normally you would wait 3 days, or just play Sunsong a bunch to wait 3 days so that he would give you Big Oran Sword. Instead of just waiting, since we can warp back so easily, we're actually going to let 3 days pass normally and then warp back to Big Oran. Why is Big Oran not broken yet? I've been very careful with using Giant's Knife the whole run. I think, I can actually check the number of hits it has. I have 3 hits left, so I've hit it 5 times over the course of the run, so I have to be very careful here. Okay, so this grotto is really important. It looks very weird because I just entered and exited the grotto. So when I enter the grotto, again, it saves those specific coordinates and room number of where you entered the grotto. And then I leave the grotto, and leaving the grotto sets your entrance glitched, and it like loads you to a glitched area, but I just load back at Death Mountain Trail. That actually was a glitched warp. I actually did set my angle to warp back to Death Mountain Trail, but that was only to do this warp because Death Mountain Trail has a special void on the side that will load you at a specific entrance, which is really good for getting to Gerudo Fortress, which I want to go to next. But that grotto thing is still really important because it means anytime I exit a grotto, any future time I exit a grotto, it will use those stored grotto entrance coordinates and room number. So later on, I'm going to warp directly into a grotto, and then I'm going to leave, and leaving is going to be those coordinates of that grotto on Death Mountain. So it's actually like long-term stored coordinates. I'll split. There. Yeah, we SRM 3 of the guards to be saved. Quick spins do not count towards Giant's Knife hits, crouch stabs do, but ISG does not. And so most of the time I'm going to try to use ISG so that it doesn't cost hits. So yeah, archery, pretty normal here. Pretty typical, nothing special. Okay, one more Skulltula I need to get here. That only took like 3 takes, by the way. Boss rush incoming? Not really, actually. This run doesn't really do a boss rush. We kind of spread the bosses out a little bit in this run. So here's a warp to Haunted Wasteland. So this is with the coordinates of where I entered Gerudo Fortress initially, above the jail. which is pretty close here. This loads room 0, but room 0 actually is the room down there with the Skulltula, so I can weird shot the Skulltula without even having to go down there. Then I set up an angle to void out and warp to Dampé's grave. Play Hated Dampé. $45 incoming. You think I'd only get a 45? Come on, I can do better than that. $39. Okay, let's not get too crazy. Dampé without F-boots is so boring. Yeah, man, so boring not being threatened by soft locking every single time he throws out a flame. Yawn. Casual 41. So Dampé's door coming down here can crush you to a specific entrance warp. So I'm gonna set up a warp to a grotto. And this is the web grotto. This is the one near Gerudo Valley in Hyrule Fields. I can weird shot to grab this Skulltula. And I'm gonna set up an entrance here that goes back to Death Mountain Trail, and as you can see, I will appear back at Death Mountain Trail, the same coordinates that were stored earlier. And I'm gonna do another warp. And this one is going to go to the Scrub Grotto near Lake Hylia. And again, when you enter a grotto with specific coordinates, it's going to save those the specific coordinates you entered the grotto from. So the exact coordinates where I voided out on Death Mountain Trail, those will actually be my stored coordinates for the next time I use Furor's Wind. So when I set Furor's Wind here, this is being set at the room number and coordinates of the exact spot where I voided on Death Mountain Trail. Or no, this drop is the same spot. This warp is from the grotto entrance. I'm mixing stuff up. Yeah. This is from the void, from where I voided to enter the Scrub Grotto. Yeah, this is it. So it uses the exact coordinates that I voided from when I entered the Scrub Grotto. So I warp here. Unfortunately, that 000 to kill the Skulltulas doesn't actually kill this one. I load too close to this one for it to actually be unloaded, which actually kind of sucks because it makes the time of day here really tight. It would have actually been very nice if it actually did kill it. I didn't void at 0, but the point where I voided was fairly close to 0 on the X and Y axis, and then, or X and Z axis, and then very high up on the Y axis. Oh yeah, that wall. The reason that wall looked weird is actually just because of Furor's Wind. So Furor's Wind, when you warp into a place with Furor's Wind, can kind of light things up. And it'll sometimes like light certain things up more, or like, I think it like specifically lights up actors, but not like walls and stuff. So that's why the wall looked kind of weird there. Just like a weird Furor's Wind side effect. So this will be a warp to Spirit Temple. This is pretty cool because the coordinates that were stored actually puts you in this room. This is actually the shortcut from the first room into the main room. We don't actually care about that shortcut, it just happens to be near a void that we can use, which is really cool. So this is going to be another warp to top of Death Mountain Trail. 3 days have now passed, so it's time to go back and grab the Goron Sword. And now this next part's really cool because the side of the mountain has another void that'll take you to a specific entrance. And there's a very easy setup I can do that just happens to go straight to Phantom Ganon's room. And so here's Phantom Ganon. And this is really convenient because for the boss warping stuff, most bosses we want to warp in with room 1. Most bosses we want to warp in with room 1 and coordinates at the entrance to Baronade's room. But for Phantom Ganon and Twinrova specifically, that doesn't really work very well. So having like such an easy setup directly to Phantom Ganon is super good. Because it just like means one less trip to Spirit to like do a Spirit Void setup and stuff. And it's right after the Goron Sword too. And my first real use of the Goron Sword in combat. I will split, maybe. You know which Ganon to shoot because the real one is brighter and makes sound. So I'm gonna do another Furrow's Wind warp here. Again, Furrow's Wind is still set at the coordinates of the exact place where I voided to enter that Scrub Grotto, which is very high up, but close to 0, 0, X and Y coordinate, but or X and Z coordinate, but very high Y coordinate. So I'm gonna drop into Zora's Fountain right on the iceberg near this heart piece. And this is cool, I got a set Furrow's Wind anyway, and I can use Furrow's Wind to dive near the bottom of the fountain. Yeah, and that ISG actually helps. That's not just for show, it actually helps with this Furrow's Wind dive, just makes it easier. It's a very nice way to get down here quickly. So this next whole like 10-minute section is just gonna be a lot of warping around, collecting stuff. Well, I mean, I guess that's a lot of the run, but like this section in particular is like a very long warping section. Yeah, that used to be a Din's dive because in the previous route, the only thing you could use was Din's, but in this route, we both can and have to use Furrow's Wind, so Furrow's Wind is just better. We can weird shot over here. Go up here and grab this Gold Skulltula. And I can do a setup here for a very quick warp to Zora's Domain. I'll turn on collision view here. So this is room 0 loaded. Room 0 is actually the upper room and room 1 is the lower room. So I can head up here, set Furrow's Wind. So if you know the thing where you can like read the sign to unfreeze King Zora, so it turns out Furrow's Wind also works. So the camera turning while setting that Furrow's Wind actually also unfreezes King Zora. So when I re-enter the room here, he's gonna be unfrozen. So I can talk to him for Zora Tunic. Very easy setup here to go straight to Zora's River. Right next to a Skulltula, very convenient. There's one more Skulltula up here I gotta grab. And then here is the setup for Gerudo Valley. So next to the Gerudo Valley warp. Testing not faster there. Not really, because the little dip in the river will end your Hess. You could like sort of Hess for the remainder of it, but then you're not really going that far. Yeah, some of this route is pretty tight on time of day, but actually there's a few places where if you are late on time of day, it actually makes time of day better in a later part. Like for example, if I had to play Sunsong back at Zora's River instead of here in Gerudo Valley, then I could actually skip an upcoming Sunsong in Lake Hylia. So there's certain parts where it's like, it seems bad for time of day, but then if you actually do miss the time of day cycle, then you actually save a Sunsong later on. So it kind of balances out. So here, warp directly into the lab. So this lab warp, we actually had an idea where you could warp, if you warped a little bit out of bounds and entered the water below this Y coordinate, like below the ground here, then it would instantly activate being able to get the heart piece instead of having to dive down. Unfortunately, like, we had to very carefully choose like the exact coordinates we would use for this warping stuff, and a coordinate too far back that would let you actually do that skip would be bad for other stuff. So we ended up not being able to do that. Yeah, all this is human doable. This is exactly the route that I will start running very soon. The coordinates are still set at the exact place where I voided from Death Mountain Trail into the Scrub Grotto. So we still do this hookshot jump. Still somehow in. What I mean somehow? I mean that through the adversity of having to deal with many new glitches coming up, trying to take its place, it still finds a way to overcome and still be useful, even though many other very strong glitches have tried to take its place. So this Sun Song is really cool because it also activates a big fairy which refills magic. And that's a really good magic refill because we were running low on magic, and now we're up to Sega Force Meadow. So this part is pretty cool. So In Sacred Forest Meadow, I need to get Minuet from Source, which involves at least starting the cutscene. And if you guys have seen speedruns before, you probably have seen the Minuet cutscene skip, where you fall out of bounds and trigger the cutscene out of bounds and skip it that way. And then, like, void out to skip it. So the void out will obviously cause a warp based on my angle. So I am going to set up a specific angle and do this cutscene skip. So I'm gonna get the song, skip the cutscene, and I'm gonna void out, and the void is gonna warp me somewhere else. And it's gonna void me to the Happy Mask shop, and I drop down and I talk to this guy and ask for my Mask of Truth. Yeah, everyone loves this part. So there's actually a really important reason why it's done like this. This isn't just for show. So the Happy Mask Shop, the entrance coordinates for it is 1 unit above the ground. And with F boots, you know how you can't fall with F boots unless you jump slash? Well, you can't jump slash in the Happy Mask Shop, which means if you enter the Happy Mask Shop as child with F boots, you can't fall and you can't talk to the guy. So it's actually impossible to talk to him with F boots. Now, you could put that off until you don't have F-boots anymore, but the way this route works out, that ends up being pretty slow, and so just warping in there as adult is better, and so we just fall in. Yeah, the warping in the mask shop is great. I'm really glad it's in the run. I'm really glad that for this whole section they do like warps from very high up, just because like the constant falling is just amusing. Podu thinks I'm Australian, yeah. So the SRMing like his po count, apparently it's something like, it's very hard to actually properly change it to what it would need to be. Like, I don't know exactly how it works, but changing the value to what it actually should be, which should be like, I guess, 9 pos, is not really that simple. So yeah, we gotta just keep doing this. Yeah, if it's higher than 11, he won't accept pos. He weirdly does accept 1 more po after 10. He will accept up to 11. And then after that, no more. No, there's no special text. I think it's just the regular old text you'd get. So now, it's time to warp to Water Temple. So it's actually slightly faster to enter this door from below than enter it from above without using a key. Because we have a few spare keys, so we can just, you know, use a little bit if we need to save a little bit of time. No, this is not doing impossible strats. This is the exact same route that would be done RTA. Just as a demonstration of the full route. So cool trick here, you can do a chew hover right in front of the door to open it mid-hover. Grab this Skulltula, And I already got the long shot and the Skulltula like past Darklink, so I don't even need to go all the way up there. Yeah, the extra keys, if you remember way back at the beginning of the run when I did item slot SRM, and I RBA'd bomb bag 20 on C right, and I said this modifies water temple keys, that gave me 20 keys. And so setting Furrow's Wind there sets Furrow's Wind at that door, the door I just exited from the moving platforms room. So those will be my new warp coordinates for when I warp at Furrow's Wind again. So quick setup here to Kokiri Forest. Yeah, rip that Kokiri in particular. So I set up angle 0 to warp to Deku Tree. So this is the reason why I set Furrow's Wind at that door in Water Temple, so that I could actually land up here. If I set Furrow's Wind where I had the coordinates before, I would actually be like in the middle of this room and fall directly onto the web. So this is really good for landing up here and getting to this Skulltula quickly. And because I'm in this room, Goma used to be part of the big boss rush, but this room has a very easy skip straight to Goma. So it's more worth it to just do this instead of a specific warp to Goma. This is all pre-recorded button inputs. So I played all this myself while the game was recording the button inputs that I was doing, and then plays it all back in one go. How much time can this route save over the old one in theory? You will find out when the run ends. No spoilers. This is on WeVC. So I do have to do another cutscene skip warp away from here. So this one, angle somewhat matters. It doesn't actually change where I warp to, it just matters to not crash. If you have a bad camera angle here, it can crash. So I'll warp away here, and again I mentioned this always warps you to Deku Tree, and this is why it's done. This is another reason why it's done like this, because we can actually make use of the forced warp to Deku Tree. In previous routes it was kind of bad that you got a forced warp to Deku because you didn't actually want to go there, but in this case we're already about to do the rest of Deku Tree, so we use that forced Deku warp to our advantage. The sword on C acts like the same sword that you have, whether it's Giant's Knife or Biggoron Sword. So earlier in the route when I didn't have Biggoron Sword, it was Giant's Knife. When I got Biggoron Sword, now it's Biggoron Sword. So you can do this skip to get to the back here without crawling through the crawl space. This is actually back from an old Hundo no SRM route, making its way back into this route. Oh, good split. Old. Everything that's not SRM is extremely old in OOT time in 2020. So warp back to Bomb of the Well because I have not gotten this Skulltula yet. And Bomb of the Well's adult is cool also. And also for this Wallmaster here, I need to use a Wallmaster again. So back when I did Baronade earlier, you may have noticed I did not grab the heart container. That was intentional because I needed to die and the heart container would refill my health. So this is going to warp back to Baronade so I can get the heart container. In addition, I've talked earlier about how the coordinates for Baronade's room and room number is really good for warping to bosses. So warping back here to set for Rosewind again to start warping to bosses is also really good. So I can do a quick setup there to go to King Dodongo. Fall right in. So you actually fall way out of bounds in this room, but this room starting the fight is just a Y coordinate check, so as soon as you fall below a certain height, you just automatically get warped in. Zelda's Letter SRM was the very end of last year. Like December last year. I never did Bombchu Bowling. Correct. Very good observation. You are correct. I have not done Bombchu Bowling yet. Soon. I will do Bombchu Bowling soon. Actually, there's a good reason why I haven't done it yet, and it's this fight specifically. You actually need to have beaten Dodongo's Cavern in order to do Bombchu Bowling. It actually doesn't open until you beat Dodongo's Cavern, which I haven't done yet. I'm only about to do it right now. And so, like I mentioned with the Goma warp, how like certain camera angles would cause a crash, the same thing is true for King Dodongo. So I have to do a setup here just to make it not crash. This isn't for any other reason aside from just saying please don't crash. So this is a forest warped Deku, and now I warp to Morpha. Morpha fight is pretty cool in this run. It's not often that Morpha is a cool fight. I'm not playing right now. This is a macro being played back. But yes, the recording I was doing the other day was for making this, so it's playing all that back in one go, in one macro. Up until this point, how much an issue is cutscene pointer? Actually, the King Dodongo thing was the last thing cutscene pointer mattered for. So at this point, it no longer matters, but it does matter for Baronade, Volvagia, King Dodongo, and Goma for all four of those, as well as the Lighter cutscene wrong warp that I did earlier. Okay, so Morpha is really cool because Big Oran Sword is strong enough and long enough to do that. So, disclaimer about that strat, it's essentially a 50% chance whether you can even go for it or not, because Morpha has to appear on one of the sides of the platforms and not the corners. And even then, it's still pretty hard to actually get it to work properly. So, that may or may not be in runs. It's probably worth attempting if I get the right spawn, but don't necessarily expect that in runs, but I'll at least try if I can. That's like one of the more maybe not RTA things in the run. But like, it's still doable, it's just it might not happen based on randomness. So one more warp to Spirit. So the last few places I need to warp to are mostly places I want to warp to a specific entrance. So Spirit is going to be really good for that, because of the Spirit Void. Oh hey, I'm also running out of magic. I really need a magic refill soon. So I'm gonna do a setup to go to Din's Fire. No, if you fail that Morphostrat RTA, it'd lose like 15 seconds maybe. I mean, I guess that's kind of a lot. Yes, if you mess up any setup, the run is likely over. I mean, if you get lucky, you might just warp to a different place than what you want instead of a crash. I mean, a crash is much more likely. But yeah, don't mess up setups. Have I counted the perfect angles required yet? Yes, actually, I counted them last night. If I counted correctly, there are 101 perfect angle setups this run. Which actually is surprisingly less than what I expected, because the last route had about 90, and I thought we'd actually have a bit more than that this run. But we actually cut out a bunch of warps too. So actually, interesting thing to note there. So I mentioned that was the Din's Fire Fairy Fountain. So when you leave the Din's Fire Fairy Fountain, obviously you go to Hyrule Castle. Except Ganon's Castle is the adult version of Hyrule Castle. And the same entrance value is used for Din's Fire as it is for Double Defense. So you exit the Din's Fire Fairy Fountain and appear right in front of Double Defense, then you can go right back in and get Double Defense. Very convenient. Where'd I get an extra heart piece? Good question. Back at the beginning of the run when I did quest status SRM, that's the SRM that was used to give me mostly songs. That also modifies heart piece count, and that actually gave me 3 extra heart pieces, which means that this run actually ends with 20 hearts and 3 heart pieces. No, this route did not get a heart piece from Butterfly SRM. So we're back to Spirit Temple, and now it's time to go to Twinrova. I'm not going to go to Twinrova the normal way through Spirit Temple though. That'd be too boring. We're going to avoid straight to Twinrova, which also goes past the Iron Knuckle, straight into the Twinrova fight and skipping the Knuckle fight. It might have been an older setup, Giga. I think we had some older setup that did get a heart piece, but the current one we used does not. Or actually, if we do get a heart piece in the current setup at Zora's River, it wouldn't actually matter because the quest status SRM would set your heart piece count to 3 anyway. Did you get one of the river? Okay, yeah, then never mind. Then yeah, it is. The quest status SRM overwrites it because quest status SRM sets your heart piece count to exactly 3, regardless. Okay, never mind. Might be. Check out the RNG minute. It's a triple. Can't get a quadruple though. I don't even think a quadruple is possible. If it is, I've never seen it. But I got a fairly quick shot for the last one. How many triples have I got in IRL? I've actually got a handful. I actually remember getting a decent number of triples several years ago, and then like not getting many in more recent years. And I'm like, dude, Why'd I get more earlier, but less now? I swear I like never get doubles anymore. And I swear I used to a lot more. I used up all my luck, rip. I touch the timing on hookshotting Punarova and shielding the attack. So that's actually based on how far back you are. If you stand a little bit back, if you're a little bit behind the center of the platform, it's pretty easy. And like, there's no benefit to doing it closer, so you should always just like hang out in the back. So another warp away here, as the cutscene's happening. This is going to be a warp to Temple of Time. So I still need to get the Prelude of Light from Source. So this is going to warp me into room 1, which is actually the front room. But I'm in the back room, but the back room's not loaded. I'm going to set Furrow's Wind here, and as I step through the tunnel to load this room and activate the cutscene, I will warp away with Furrow's Wind. Right there. Warp away, and warp to Bongo. Split. Is that timing tough? It's a 2-frame window, which is fairly easy. It's the same timing as the Sun Song cutscene skip. What was that room? That was the Master Sword Chamber room. It just looks weird when it wasn't loaded properly. So, full bongo fight. Yeah, the knife does turn into BGS, so now I have infinite hits. Even though I never changed the actual equip on C-Right. Although actually, speaking of Big Oran Sword, that was the final time it's actually used. The next pause will actually be equipping over it, and the sword will go away. And by go away, I mean go away on the C buttons. It'll obviously still be in my equipment inventory. I'll just never actually equip it. They had a good run though. A very unique run. It's very interesting to actually have a sword on C-Right. This run does get ice arrows. Ice arrows just are unfortunately not faster on Bongo. So this is going to Bomb Chu Bowling, finally. Bomb Chu Bowling is adult. And I already got the biggest bomb bag from the Rolling Goron and Goron City, so I don't need to play for the bomb bag here. How consistent are the new setups? The warp setups? They're all consistent. I mean, every setup is always going to be consistent, otherwise it wouldn't be a setup. But they're actually fairly easy and simple. I tried really hard to get, like, the easiest setups I could. And they're honestly all pretty good. Split. Okay, so here is one of the weird parts of the run. So we actually have to watch the Nocturne cutscene normally. So Nocturne of Shadow, we've been wrong warping into it for a pretty long time. And it's really nice because it skips the first part of the cutscene, which is a minute long. But so in this route, there's a lot of very awkward things about wrong warping to it in this route. So the main thing is you can't do a regular wrong warp into a cutscene with the glitched warping active unless you also do cutscene SRM, like what was done with the Light Arrow cutscene wrong warp. And that's just not worth it for this. And so if you wanted to do a regular wrong warp into it, you would have to use the non-glitched entrance with Furo's Wind, which means that Furo's Wind would not be set at a glitched entrance, which means you couldn't reactivate it easily. So it would be too inconvenient to do a regular wrong warp, and also too inconvenient to do a cutscene SRM wrong warp. So, in the end, it's actually worth it to just watch the cutscene normally. When's the last time Hundo watched this cutscene? I want to say 2016? But yeah, kind of unfortunate. One of the downsides of this route, but I think we have enough upsides to not worry about it too much. Not even equipping iron boots before the cutscene. You know what? I can actually do that because I have an extra pause to work with, or like I can do it on that pause. Well, it would still be an extra pause here, but it wouldn't actually be that bad. Don't judge the time too quickly. Let it play out. Equipping iron boots wouldn't help, it would just be funny. Last LOTAD was 318. So I finally get my Skulltula rewards after I have... Let's actually check Skulltula account. 98 Skulltulas. Two left. Not 100. Give me some time. I'll get 100. There's still time in the run. There's one over here. Alright. This will be 99. Don't need that last one though. Hope I remember where it is. I do have all the hearts, and I'm still collecting heart pieces, because again, this run ends with 20 hearts and 3 heart pieces because of quest status SRM. So this is going to be the Song of Storms cutscene skip, where I do a bomb push down this corridor, which will allow me to play the Ocarina near the Song of Time block while this guy is loaded, which actually causes this Song of Storms prompt to come up. And I do another setup for a warp, and I play Song of Storms and immediately warp away. That gives me Song of Storms. Song of Storms continues playing in the background here. And I have one last, or no, two more setups. This one setup to another grotto. The Song of Storms grotto in Hyrule Castle with this Skulltula. This will be Skulltula number 100. There it is. One last angle setup. Enter the warp. Equip Master Sword. And pop out at Ganon. So, this Ganon warp, you remember all the way back at Death Mountain Trail when I entered that cow grotto and just left? And I talked about how that stored coordinates? That was still stored. The room number and coordinates that I just used from exiting that grotto was still those stored coordinates from that cow grotto at Death Mountain. And it was room 0. And had coordinates near 000, and that cutscene kind of warps you in anyway. And the reason it's important that I note that is because I had room 1 loaded with Farore's Wind, and trying to load this area with room 1 would crash because there is no room 1 for the Ganon fight. And the grotto itself was like room, I don't know, 9 or something. It wasn't a room 0 either. So specifically, the fact that we still had those cow grotto coordinates and room numbers set was really important because we can use that to work directly to Ganon from the grotto. And yeah, why don't I do a quick check of the inventory. Looks like I got everything here. 100 skulls, 3 heart pieces, 100 skulls. That's 1/4 in hex, which is 20 hearts. I got all my stuff. That is a full inventory. This is 100%. Now I just gotta beat the guy. Is it gonna be sub 3? Might just barely make it. Sub 258. So yeah, this route is fast. For reference, the previous demonstration run for the previous route was 3:18. Now we did have some time saves from when that demonstration run was made and when like actual runs were being done. So really that probably could have been like 3:15. But overall, this means this route probably saves like 17 or so minutes. So yeah. 15 to 17, somewhere around that area. So this is a big time save. This route is fast. So, typically, my sum of best, when I actually start doing runs of this, I expect my sum of best to be close to this, but still a little bit worse probably. I think I should be able to get like a sub 3 sum of best. And runs, a good run will usually be like about a little bit under 10 minutes slower than that. So I think I should be expecting around 3:10 for a good RTA run. It might be a while before that, don't expect it like next week, but when I start being able to get really good runs of this, I'm expecting around 3:10. So yeah, this route is crazy, and this also technically means that we have a sub 3 TAS. I've been saying for a long time a TAS of Hundo should be sub 3. This is like technically not a real TAS by some technicalities, but we essentially have a sub 3 TAS, which is pretty cool. Now, this is definitely not enough for sub 3 RTA, but it sure is getting close. Yeah, I'm thinking a TAS is going to be like 230. Actually, I don't even know. I'm suspecting a TAS might not actually be that much faster just because we skip so much movement. Like, a lot of the things a task would save time on is not really relevant. But yeah, so this was very cool. Hope you guys enjoyed it. But anyway, that is it for me. Gonna be done for now.